fruits, nuts, and seeds.
Jabari, thank you for teaching us to be healthy.
The energy that I feel with these meals.
Jabari, that was really yummy.
Like a kid with new toys. Health is my greatest joy. Come and see, come and be with our host Chapati.
Hello and welcome to Food with Life. We're here at the Conscious Life Expo 2014 in Los Angeles, California. And we have a very wonderful guest here. He's a neuropsychologist and he's from a wonderful, far, far away land, Uruguay. And wonderful to have a Dr. Mario Martinez here. Very honored to have you.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You are well known for a video series called The Mind Body Code. I know I've heard about it. And mind and body has a very, very important relationship, and many times we forget it. You know, people run around, right, left, here, there, very fast in the world of technology, and the pace of life is getting faster and faster. And people wonder then, they go home and suddenly they come up with some kind of a sickness, or they're ill for some reason, and they wonder why. So tell me a little about this mind-body relationship, and possibly the mind-body code, and you're an expert in this, so give us some wisdom here.
Well, the mind and the body have never been separated. We separated, like the ocean and the waves are not separated, and the surface try to separate them. So it's our own separation, but there's never any separation. And the way that it works is that
So there's a unity.
There's a unity, yes, and we try to separate. It's just like 7 days is really a cultural imposition on time. You have 7 days, and we make a week, but look at the power that symbol has. 7 days makes a week. Then Monday is the first day, and in the United States, the highest frequency of cardiac arrest, Mondays at 9 o'clock. So
Why is it?
Well, because the people that hate their work is the beginning of another week of hell. But you see, there's no such thing as the imposition of time and space. We impose it. But since we impose it, then we live within those 7 days, and we live and die within those 7 days. So we create a symbol of something that doesn't exist. Time and space is seamless, but we put segments, and our body begins to respond to the segment that the mind put.
So I'm wondering, because is this not then related very much to culture?
Very much of
You know,
culture.
because different cultures have different paces.
Yes.
And different things, and where we live can determine how fast your life is, how slow it is, and your condition of your body.
Yes. Culture is very important in my theory. My theory is mind-body culture. Because when you study let's say you study neurology in the United States, it's not the same as in Asia. The brain functions differently. It's the same brain, but the brain will adjust to the culture. I'll give you an example. In Peru, when the women are going through the menopause, the hot flashes, they call it bochorno, which means shame. So they're saying, I'm going through the shames, I have the shames. And we know that when you shame someone, the immune system causes inflammation. So the women in Peru have a very high level of inflammation when they go through menopause. Women in Japan, another culture, they call it the second spring, an opportunity for additional wisdom, an opportunity for a resource for the woman to mature, no inflammation. So the culture will shape the biology rather than the other way around.
Well, let's take the two cultures we talked about here. The pace is very different, is it not? Or
Yes, very much. They're cultures that create a time space very different than ours. They're cultures that don't have a week, for example. They don't have the 7 days. They're cultures that don't have, for example, centenarians don't have any concept of middle age. So middle age is when you begin to break down. It's the second half. But if there's no middle age, then your body doesn't respond. For example, let's say that this culture says that middle age is 45. A day before you're 45, you're not middle-aged. The day you hit 45, you're middle-aged. You begin to look middle-aged, you begin to dress middle-aged, the medication for the middle-aged, and it's an illusion created by the culture, not biological.
So would you say more, for example, I'm thinking more because I've done some reading on it, an area called Hunza, you know about this?
Yes, yes.
Where, are there more centenarians in a culture like this? Or where there's very little technology?
Well, there's centenarians all over. In the United States, there are 100,000 now. It's the highest, fastest growing segment of the population, independent of what's going on. But for example, in Sardinia, in Okinawa, Vilcabamba, places like that, they have quite a few centenarians, and they don't live the way that we do, and they don't get sick the way that we do.
Okay, I want to touch on this more in our next segment, okay?
Okay.
We'll be back in just a second. I am your host, Chapati. This is Food with Life. Stay with us for a bit of a talk on centenarians. See you in just a minute. Hello and welcome back to Food with Life. I am your host Chapati, and we're here at the Conscious Life Expo with a very revered Dr. Mario Martinez. We're talking a bit about aging, and we're just touching on a very beautiful concept of longevity. So tell us a bit about, we were discussing the centenarians.
The centenarians, when I first started studying them, I was looking for genetics, and I would ask him, a 102-year-old man, how long did your father live? And he would say 70, your mother 80. And the correlation that I found was that about 20 to 25% is genetic, the rest is cultural. It's the way that you conceptualize things. But the interesting thing about it is they don't try to live long. The way they live is what makes them live long, independent of the culture. Because what they do have is they create their own subculture, and it's what I call centenarian consciousness.
So suppose somebody has a long history of longevity in their family, but they're in a very high-paced, frenetic type of environment. Go, 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 go. And they have a job which is pressure-oriented. What is the likelihood of them reaching a high age, or is that going to be overtaken by this environment, so to speak?
It can affect it because it's environment biology, but genetics is just a predisposition. It's not a sentencing. You're predisposed to things that you can trigger or not trigger. But also stress is a very misunderstood concept. Stress is not necessarily good or bad. If you're doing something stressful with meaning, it's not going to hurt you. If you're doing something stressful without meaning, it'll hurt you. Because the brain reinterprets things. For example, people, conductors of symphonies have a very frenetic, it's a good word, life, and yet they have the longest longevity of any profession because they love what they do, they're exposed to the music, they have passion. So it's a stress buffer to have passion. If you're doing something without meaning, then anything stressful will be bad for you.
So it's important that you must, not must, but it's a good suggestion to like what you're doing. So
Yes.
we're getting into something different here, because liking and loving and feeling compassionate about what you're doing involves your heart.
Yes.
So say something about that and about what you're doing every day.
Well, I work with many global companies in helping executives increase their productivity and maintain their health. And a very large percentage of executives have gastrointestinal problems because they eat with their computers, they go to bed with their iPhones or whatever, cell phone, and the body was not made for that. When you eat, you go into what's called the parasympathetic system, which is you are slowing everything down and speeding up your digestion. But when you're on the phone, and especially if it's some difficult news that you're dealing with, it goes into sympathetic, which speeds everything up, slows down the digestion, so that on and off, causes a tremendous amount of confusion for the digestion. And eventually you have reflux and gastrointestinal problems.
It probably confuses the brain,
Yes, very much.
you know? It's almost, it's dividing the attention.
Yes.
So, you know, it seems like, I know from my understanding, it's better to eat in a quiet area with no TV, no sound, just sit in a silence. Ideally, even not to talk.
In silence, if you're alone, but if you're with family and
Yes.
no television, then that's really very good.
Very, yeah.
Because it's very, that breaking bread, it's a powerful ritual, very healthy ritual, breaking bread with family.
So, but it's not, in a family, it's not easy to eat quietly. You know, you have children running around and all this. That in a way is contrary, but in a way it's positive because you have that heart element involved.
It is, because again, going back to the heart, it's a family, the children running around, that's what I call a bioinformational field of family unity, which is fine. But it's not fine if you're watching television or if you are playing video games within the family. And sometimes I'll go to a restaurant, I'm sure you've seen it, you see a family, two children, a husband and wife, and each of them with their cell phone or their video games, and there's no connection at all. And then they wonder why the family's breaking up. There's no bonding.
Yes, no bonding of the heart.
Yes.
So I think we're going to take a break. I want to talk a bit about more the heart, because that is, to me, as what they say, is the bottom line. Because everything comes from within this. As far as I understand, you probably could say something different or add to that. So I am your host Chapati with our wonderful guest, Dr. Mario Martinez, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the heart and more of our thoughts and ideas. Stay with us. We'll be right back. This is Food with Life, and I am your host Chapati. See you in just a minute. Hello and welcome back to Food with Life. I'm your host Chapati. We're here at the Conscious Life Expo with a very revered guest, Dr. Mario Martinez. And we were talking a bit about the heart. And it's, to me, it's as they say, the bottom line of the mind-body. Tell me your thoughts on that.
Well, we create symbols. We have symbols become very important in life. When someone says love, when they say hate, that has a physiology. And most cultures will see the heart associated with love. They'll touch their heart. In fact, there's some research that's showing that people, when they have some cardiac arrest, some cardiac problem, you look 6 months before or 6 months ahead, and there's always something going on, either a loss of a parent or a loss of a relationship or an abandonment, something going on related to love. So there's a connection that we make with our physiology. We say peace of mind, we say I can't stomach that, it breaks my heart, and those things are taken literally by the body.
So whatever you say, the language you use, or is it the language you use or the language I feel? For example, if you're saying something to me, or if you're a parent, and you say something abusive to a child, the effect is not good, obviously, on the child. But how does that relate, for example, if two parents are arguing, you know, and has outside of the child observes it?
Well, you said something important. It's not what you say, but what you feel, what I call the felt meaning.
Yes.
The felt meaning is very important. If it depends on the age of the child. If a child is, let's say, 6 or 7, they don't have a very well-developed identity. So if they see the parents fighting, they think that the child thinks that he or she is a bad person. They take it personally because they can't abstract. If they're older, then they begin to see their parents as someone who is fighting, and what the interpretation that they make is, this must be marriage. So they learn marriage has to have conflict. So they look for conflicting people in their relationships then, because they learn the language of love, of conflict.
So when you mean they look for conflicting people, what do you mean by this?
Because the intimate language of love, I call it the intimate language of love, can be entangled with wounds. It can be entangled with, for example, you have a parent that every time the parent talks to you, the parent shames you. So as you're learning love, you associate the shame with the love. So the only language you can speak is the intimate language of love with shame. You look for people to shame or people to shame you. And you don't realize that you're doing that. I've had patients who tell me, I've been married 3 times, and every time I get abandoned because they speak the language of abandonment. So they look for that without knowing it, of course. That's what the parents taught them.
So suppose they don't find it.
If they don't find, then they say marriage is good. Let me look for harmonious marriage. And when they find somebody that's harmonious, they don't invest in that person.
So you mean, so if someone's looking for a partner, for example, and they have this upbringing of this disagreements in their life, is it that necessarily they're going to be attracted to someone who is very different than them, that might indeed bring about conflict in their life?
It's a possibility. One of the things that I do with people who are going into a relationship is I ask them to identify if they have any what I call archetypal wounds. That they learn abandonment, betrayal, or that they learn shame. If they learn those, then they have to be very aware of how they expose that and how they express that, and they're healing fields for each one of them. For example, if you have an abandonment wound, I think commitment is the consciousness that you begin to learn to live. If you have one of shame, you begin to live honor consciousness.
Right.
And if you have one of betrayal, you begin to live loyalty, confidence, and consciousness. So what you do then is you bring people into your field of honor. The people that are going to be shaming are not going to want to be in that field. So what you're doing is you're avoiding tremendous problems in the future. That's one of the ways to really do that. In early relationships, we bring out our best and we're in love and the honeymoon effect. But after a while, you begin to see people's color coming out. And that's where you have to be very aware. And it can change, but it doesn't mean that because you want to change, somebody wants to change. So your partner may not want to change. Your partner may want to live in misery.
I think I have an important word I want to talk about in the last segment here. I am your host, Chapati. Stay with us. This is Food with Life with our wonderful guest, Dr. Mary Martinez. And we're going to talk a bit about commitment. I am your host. We'll see you in just a minute. Stay with us, please. Welcome back to Food with Life. I am your host, Chapati, and we're with our revered guest, Dr. Mary Martinez. And we're talking a bit about relationships and the environment. And the most important thing is, which I think is the bottom line in a relationship, is commitment and honor. Tell me your thoughts on this. I know this is part of your mind-body code.
Commitment is a very important component, obviously, in a relationship, but there are people who are committed to non-commitment. They're committed to not get committed. So those are the ones who find a soulmate every 6 months. They play with the word soulmate. And those relationships don't work. What happens is those people mostly have learned abandonment early in life. So for them to commit means that they're going to be abandoned. So they abandon first before they get abandoned. So they set themselves up. It's a self-sabotaging process. And then no relationship can work that way because it's very easy to find fault in other people. And if you're in a non-commitment kind of mindset, the moment you find fault, say, okay, this is it, I'm out of here. And you will look for somebody else. But you don't realize that you're taking an abandonment consciousness to the relationship. So it doesn't work.
Yes. So would you say you can have a commitment without a marriage?
You can have a commitment for anything. You can have a commitment for your children.
But I mean more of a life commitment. Or does a marriage necessarily mean that you have a commitment?
It should if it's going to work, because it's otherwise there's no point. But I think commitment, as you were saying, I think you're leading to commitment for a life purpose. What am I doing here? What can I get committed to? And sometimes people don't think about those things. And as they get older, then they wake up and what have I done? Because they haven't seen what they could do in their lives and the things that they could commit to. And a life without commitment is meaningless. It doesn't have any meaning.
I know you came up with, in your code, you have a series of portals, I guess, which create the whole mind-body code. What is the most prominent one that you think?
Those portals are really the cultural segments that we create. There's a portal for infancy, a portal for childhood, young adult, middle age, old age, and those are not biological. Those are just cultural impositions we put on time and space. But we shape our biology based on that. So for example, if you're young, you're a child, you consider that you don't have a lot of knowledge. You're not respected as much as if you're older. If you're older, then you're expected to not be as quick, and there's a little bit of a feeble-mindedness. You notice all the comedies are, Grandpa says, honey, where are my glasses? You're wearing them, Grandpa. That's insulting. It has nothing to do with age. It has to do with how the culture ages you. And you can age if you fall into that. The moment you go into the attribution of age, for example, let's say you're 20 and you forget something. So I forgot something. But you're 80 and you forgot something, you say, oh, it must be dementia coming in because I'm 80. The attribution you give it, your brain will adjust to the attribution you give it.
Well, just quickly, you said that was insulting. Suppose you say, Grandpa, you're wearing the glasses.
Yes.
I think more acutely, it's the intention. You may say it with a heartfelt, Grandpa, you're wearing your glasses, or something. And instead of being demeaning, it may not be demeaning. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, I am.
It's the intention.
Of course. But the problem, what I was suggesting is that they use it as comedy. And an older person has to be, for example, an obese person has to be a happy person. An elderly person has to be feeble-minded. If you're older and you fall in love, the dirty old man or the dirty old woman. Those are concepts that we create, so it kills love at a certain age. You're 80 and you want to fall in love again, and they say, no, you're too old for this. I mean, what do you have left? It kills the heart, as you were saying.
Yes.
So the heart is ageless. We give it age with the culture.
Right. It confines it. It narrows it.
Yes.
In short, do you have any techniques or ideas that people could possibly take with them that might help them with all this?
Yes, I think that from the Centenarians, what I've learned is that they create subcultures of wellness. For example, they don't fall into the middle age. So let's say that you are reaching middle age and you're 45, or you're reaching retirement age. By the way, if you retire without purpose, people don't live very long after they retire without purpose. You have to have purpose. You have to go into joy, not out of joy. But one of the things that you can do is you can begin to look for subcultures that support the rebels who break away from the portal. So if you're in a portal of retirement, don't go to play bingo and talk about your illnesses and how long you have to live. Be around people that are positive, that are not into the portal of age,
right. And
you'll see how your possibility to improve your health increases significantly.
Stay with young people or people that have spirit rather
Yes.
than people that are...
I had centenarians talk to me, and there's a 105-year-old centenarian who said, look at that old man over there, the way he walks, and the old man was 30 years younger than him. Because they don't see themselves as old.
Right.
And it's what you believe what matters, not what people tell you. It's more important to believe that you're loved, even if you're not, than to be loved and not believe it. The brain will pick up on what you said, the felt meaning, what you feel the meaning is, not what you think the meaning is.
Right, right. It's all in your heart.
It's all in your heart, yes.
Well, thank you very, very much for your wisdom.
My pleasure.
And honored, our privilege to have you.
Thank you.
Dr. Mary Martinez, a wonderful neuropsychologist. I am your host, Chapati. We want to thank him for blessings and all the wisdom he has.
Thank you.
This is Food with Life. We'll see you very, very soon. In fact, at some point, Dr. Martinez may come to us in the kitchen and show us some brilliant food dishes. But for now, this is Food with Life. We'll see you very soon. I'm your host, Chapati. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, and most important, a wonderful life. Bye-bye.
Veggies, fruits, nuts.